What is going on, guys? I hope you're doing amazingly well. Now, welcome to this section. First of all, this section is going to be my method of trading supply and demand, and it's a little different to other people's method of doing it. And I like to combine a few different concepts and use tools to make it easier for myself, just so that I can visually see what's going on and just to give myself a much clearer idea and have a system to see what the market and what the institutions and banks are doing. Okay, so in order to first of all explain what supply and demand is, I like to use just a comic book analogy. Now, if you have an audience, okay, so let's say you have a particular audience, maybe you've got a blog all about your, different comics and what the font and whatever. And you have created a very specific comic, okay, and you've created 20 copies of it, and you're not going to make any more copies for another few months, okay? And you have, let's say, 1,000 people in your audience want to buy that comic, but you've only got 20 copies, okay? What does that mean? Well, it means that the price is going to be fairly high because the price is going to represent the fact that it's really, really rare, okay? Now, on the flip side, if you had 10 people in your audience and you had 200 copies of the comic, then the price is going to be pretty low because you are going to want more people to buy it. And so you have a lower price until the demand outweighs the supply. Okay, and here we basically get down to it. Okay, so if we have two zones here, okay, we have a zone on the bottom and a zone on the top, like this. Okay, now what this is going to do is we are going to imagine that this below is our demand and this is our supply. So when we're down here, okay, and we're in a demand area, we have very, very low supply. Okay, we don't have many. That's why it's in demand. Rolls-Royce is in demand because there aren't many of them, and so the price is really, really high. The supply is low, and so the price represented through the demand is very, very high. Okay. However, if the demand massively increased and we tripled the amount of Rolls-Royces all the way up to a certain point, it's going to get to the point where the supply is so high and the demand isn't as high as it was that the price is going to fall. Okay. And as the price falls and falls and falls, the demand will continue to eventually go back down. Okay. And the pattern will repeat itself over and over and over again. It will go up, down, whatever. Okay. And so the idea behind this is we are looking for evidence of this in the market. And essentially, in a word, what we're looking for is we are looking for displacement. Okay, we're looking for price to move away in a direction, and we're looking for something to change, something to shift in the market conditions. And then we want to look for where that displacement started, where the displacement began. Okay, it's very, very important because then when we return to that area, the theory is that when we return, we are going to fill up the rest of the orders that caused that and then continue going. Okay, now I'm going to get into the strength of zones and all of these types of things and how to pick the best ones later on in this section. But for now, it's just important that you understand this basic concept and then also pair it with the understanding of how to actually draw these zones. Okay, and so in order to draw these zones, we've got to understand the different types, the different ways that these are going to look. Now, essentially, when we have a small consolidation on the chart, okay, and then we break down, okay, or we have a small consolidation and we break up, then when we return to these levels, okay, the idea is that whatever has caused this consolidation, and more often than not, it is a move by smart money. More often than not, what this is going to enable us to do is it means that there's going to be more orders there, and so that we can continue to ride it. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk to you about the different types of patterns next video. But for now, the important thing you need to understand is that these consolidations, otherwise known as a base in classic supply and demand terms, okay, these are going to be the powerful areas that are basically the footprint of the banks. Now, when it comes to drawing these supply and demand areas, sure, you can draw around consolidations, but it's not always going to look that easy. if we think about what a consolidation looks like on a higher time frame, it's going to look like indecision. Specifically, it's going to look like a doji, okay? And so it's going to look just like your standard doji. Okay, this is a terribly drawn doji, but there you go. It's going to look like a doji, okay? Because this doji is representing that imbalance. And so if we have a big move, a doji, big move, we return to that area, potentially we could continue, okay? Again, I'm going to talk to you more about the patterns and exactly the styles of using this in the next video. But let's look at a couple of examples of actually drawing these zones in, okay? So we can see here, sharp downwards move. We then have a bullish move up, okay? We could have a demand zone here. We see price comes up, it comes back down into this area perfectly, and then leaves and goes up, okay? If we follow this along, we have this zone here, this doji here, before a big move here, nice little move. We come back, we wick into this area perfectly, okay? We come up here. Where's the most recent or the most kind of powerful doji area? Be around these dojis right here. We come up, come down, we respect it. Okay. Now, that's just a few examples of how you can do it on the buy side. On the sell side, if we look to where this whole move came to, draw it around this doji up here. What do we see? Came all the way up here, touched it perfectly, came down. And price will often ping pong in between these supply and demand areas, okay? And as we get on, we're going to talk about how long a zone is valid for. Because sometimes price will leave and you've still got this zone marked on up here. And it's like, oh, well, when do I get rid of it? I'm going to give you the exact timescales of how to figure that out. Every single question you could possibly have, I'm going to answer that in this section. But for now, just think about it, okay? You draw it around the doji and you should have a nice move afterwards. Okay, we have a nice move. We have this followed by a nice down move. We have this doji followed by a nice up move, doji followed by up move, dojis followed by up move, etc. Okay, it's very, very simple. So let's look at a couple more examples and then we will wrap it up. Okay, now, again, the reason that most people fail with supply and demand is just because they don't have the right education in it. Okay, for example, here, they will have their supply demand zone, whatever you want to call it, marked on around here. Okay, they won't pay attention to what the rest of the market is telling them, and they won't have any other confidence besides just having a zone here. Okay, this course is designed to help fix that problem. And if you would have drawn your zone like this right now, I totally understand why. Because, you know, you've got some nice little consolidation and loads of dojis here. We then break down, we then come back up, and it appears that we just smashed through. It's like, what the hell's happened? Well, I'm going to explain all of that as we go into the future videos. But for now, we can just continue to mark on a couple of these high probability zones. Okay. Okay, so if we draw this on right here. Now, the reason I've drawn it around here, I've mainly drawn it around this candle here. And sometimes you're going to find that, you know, sometimes you don't know whether to draw it from the top of this candle or whatever. But generally speaking, one of these candles will be fine. Okay. Price leaves, comes back, etc. Okay. Very, very simple. And you're going to find that when these zones go against you, generally it's because there is a higher time frame zone that you haven't accounted for. But again, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about all of these specifics and these nuances as we kind of progress. Okay, but for now, the main thing that you understand is what supply and demand is, which you should understand now, and then also how to draw supply and demand zones, which is essentially just around that base that we discussed, that doji, that indecision, that consolidation, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I hope that's made sense, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.